Lilada, it's okay if I go up now? It's okay to go up there now? Hey, good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to our live event for the Black Like Me podcast. And please help me just give another, just a warm celebration to for these young folks who, many of whom are part of the Richard Davis Ensemble group. You all are fantastic. Well, listen, I'm so glad that everyone's here tonight. So I want to jump right into our event. But I'm going to do something that's going to make the introverts hate me. But listen, hey, I'm a podcaster, so my job is to make people mad. Just take a moment and you don't have to get up and walk around, because I know people hate that, but just at least wave at somebody else that's sitting there. You know, there are people that are coming, just kind of, let's just warm up the environment a little bit. Introverts, you thought I was going to get you, didn't you? Thought I was going to make you get up and go around and say some things. So listen, I'm excited about being here tonight. And there's just a couple of things that I want to share with you. And so we're going to have fun this evening. We're going to lean in. It looks like we're going to have a cozy event, but we're also recording. So this will be part of a Black Like Me podcast episode. But what I want to do is just to open up by just telling a little story just to welcome you into my life and world. And I want to say, first of all, before telling this story, that I don't talk about these kinds of things in order to make excuses or to talk about how hard it is in the life or in the world as a black man. But I say it to at least contextualize things, because in our world there's a belief that there really is no systemic racism. Yet if I do well, the belief is that I'm a DEI effort. So there's no systemic issue. So if I say things are hard, things are tough, they're like, no, it's not. But if I work my butt off like I have and like we do, it's like, he must have just gotten that because he was black. That's why they gave him an honorary doctorate from Wisconsin, because they needed to give it to a black person. And so I just say these things just to help to set a level, to level the playing field a little bit so that we understand this. And I don't share these barriers again in order to make excuses, but I do it. I share the barriers and to demonstrate the uniqueness and the stringency of success of black people and people in the world. So that's why we share these kinds of things. And so let me open by just telling a little story that gives you a peek into my world. So I went to, I'm 60, so I need to see my doctor regularly. So I went to see my physician, and it's the first doctor that I've really liked since my pediatrician, who I've had since 1970 when I was 6. In fact, he was my daughter's pediatrician. And he passed away, and of course, once you turn 18, they're not your doctors anymore. And so I've had a number of doctors that I just haven't connected with. But this particular doctor I met a few years ago, and a friend put me in touch with him, and he was the first non-white physician I've ever had. He's Korean American, and he walked in, he was a few minutes late, which I like in a doctor because it means that they're taking time with people. So he came in, pulled up a chair, did not get a stethoscope, did not look into my file or anything. He just jumped right in saying, let me talk to you a little bit about stress in the life of a person of color. He said, now I'm Korean American, and so there are things that I'm experiencing even as a doctor, and he told me some of those things. He said, but here's what I know about you and the physicality of your body, the physiology of what's going on in your body. These are things that you're experiencing. I met him when I was 58, and it was the first time that a physician or a health professional ever connected my health with my ethnicity and the stress that I experienced because of that. First time in my life. And so usually I'm just put on pills. My doctor that I had for years put me on high blood pressure meds when I was in my early 30s. He said, you're the youngest person I've ever put on high blood pressure medicine. My blood pressure is only 140 over 90. I mean, I know that's not ideal. Now they've lowered it, it's like 120 over 80, like you guys have it hard now, but like we could get away with a 140 over 90. And so he started talking to me about stress, and I said, no one ever talked to me about that, because if I can figure out how to mitigate the stress, Maybe I don't have to be on high blood pressure medicine, but no one's ever put the two and two together with me. He talked with me for 20 minutes about the intersection of my health and my ethnicity and my race. Then he said, now let's take a look at what's going on inside you. Whatever he prescribed, I did it. I don't do flu shots, but because Dr. Lee said do it, I did it. He helped me get through COVID and all those things. And so last year, after an appointment with him, I got a note from my clinic saying he's no longer employed. Yeah. And I know it's tricky finding a new doctor like it is finding a new hairstylist, a new barber, a new whatever it is you got to find. But now my issue is when I go on the UW Health website, and they provide great care, so this is no bash to them, but as I start looking at internists and folks who really focus on internal medicine and chronic things like hypertension, none of the male physicians look like me or Dr. Lee. So now I have this dilemma. I haven't had a physical in a minute, and I probably need one. But this is just an idea, just a small glimpse into the world. Now, meanwhile, I've got a family that I'm caring for. I've got a $35 million facility that I'm building that we're breaking ground on in the week. Yes, thank you. Still have a congregation that I'm leading. I still lead an award-winning podcast called Black Like Me, Black Valley Truth. But looming back here with all of the success is that if I don't keep up with my physical health and manage stress, all of what I'm doing then becomes very iffy. Now, this year my mom passed away, but the high of it is UW Madison gave me an honorary doctorate degree. I found out this year that I've been asked to become an adjunct professor at UW Madison's African American History Department. So next year I'm going to begin teaching on a part-time basis. We're continuing to raise money for the center. But what makes this journey unique and what makes me need and want space like Black Like Me is to talk about things like this. And again, like I said earlier, it's not to make excuses. It's so that we understand when you see someone who looks like me, and you see their success, you see their art, you hear their voice, you know their stories, you watch them. I just want people to be just to be aware of the extra things we have to do, the extra hoops we have to jump through, the extra time it takes to find a doctor or a cardiologist. I don't need one of those yet, thank God. It's just this extra piece of what happens. Now, if I lived in Chicago, I could find someone like that, who not only look like Dr. Lee, but look like Mr. G. If I lived in Milwaukee, I could find folks who are African American, who are African, who are from the Caribbean, who understand these things, who can talk about what you should eat and what you should do and what you should think about. And so as I traverse and navigate this world with some trial and error, I found that every once in a while I need to land and say, this is just a snapshot into all of this today. This is just what I'm dealing with today. Still got to succeed, and I'm not making excuses. It's just that I want people to understand. Those who think that there is no systemic racism, I want them to understand all of these other issues and to think about it before they tell me I'm a good Black leader. I'm a good leader. Before they tell me I'm a good Black spokesperson, I'm a good spokesperson. I'm a good podcaster, a good Black podcaster. I want them to take that extra moniker off because I know who I am, what I look like, but I don't want them to diminish it by thinking that I can only be good among my Black peers. So it's this interesting dance that we have. So I've created this podcast so we talk about those spaces, those realities, this reality, so that when we befriend people, we love people, we see people and we care about them, we think about this a little differently. Now, I'm going to find a doctor. I found one who's going to see me, but Black people, you don't have to nod. People, you don't have to nod, you know where I'm going. Am I going to have to educate my doctor? Yes. Hell yes. Am I going to have to explain hypertension in Black males? Yes. Am I going to have to explain these kinds of things? Yes. When I go and see Dr. Lee and say, oh, sorry, I'm late. I got pulled over because I was speeding. I wasn't wrong. But also, people need to know why my blood pressure might be a little bit elevated. And so even to get the kind of great health that I'm going to have, I have the right kind of insurance. I have good insurance. I got white people insurance. That was meant to be funny. You can laugh at that. I've got good insurance. But I have to train my doctor, who spent 4 years in medical school and then residency and then a postdoc and has worked all over the country, who has the stethoscope and the white jacket. And he knows all of these things, but chances are he is clueless on how living in Madison or driving past Tony Robinson's home to come here tonight or walking through TSA or being selected, just randomly to be screened, doesn't realize what else happens as you show up. Again, these are not to make excuses. It's just to show the stringency of Black success. And so when you see your friends, your loved ones, when you see yourselves in the mirror, you see folks who look like me and they are handling their business. Give them an extra nod, an extra smile. Not that you know everything, but that you're just trying to say, you worked your butt off to be here. Enjoy it. So season 10, how did we get here? We do 2 seasons a year. We're at season 10, and we're dropping that this year. And I haven't even told my team this, but the theme for season 10 is going to be called Say It Loud. Yeah, and so my special guest is going to come up a little bit, Miss Bianca, but we talked a little bit about this as we were talking about the importance of our pride and how we say all of those things real, real loud. And so I'm really looking forward to this season. We have some exciting guests who are coming in. The Attorney General, Keith Ellingson, who tried Daryl Chauvin in the George Floyd murder case, is going to be one of my guests. Chancellor Jennifer Mnuchin from UW-Madison is going to talk about the struggles of higher ed and trying to make campus safe for everyone, particularly for black people. Leonard Pitts Jr. is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who wrote for the Miami Herald, is going to be on my show talking about his book about the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We're going to have Kelly Kelly Carter Jackson, who is a scholar out east, and she has a new book that's out. She teaches African American history. She's going to be on the show. Ben Wickler, who is the president and executive director of the Democratic Party here in the state of Wisconsin. I wrote him when I was in Mexico on vacation, found out what's going on with Kamala Harris. And I said, Ben, I need you back on the show because black women got us through the last 4 years. Yeah, so what we're going to talk about, what we're going to say, and Wisconsin's a swing state, so you don't want to miss season 10. Season 10 is going to be really exciting. And so I'm so appreciative for that. So listen, let me do this. Let me just grab this because I want to make sure I say everything that's right. We're going to shift a bit because I've invited a very special guest to sit here with me today and to talk with me. And Bianca Marten is the host of City Cast Madison podcast. Yes, so please help me welcome her. Come on, please come on up. She is skilled in audio journalism and multi-platform storytelling. Bianca has produced a wide range of radio and podcast programs, including National Geographic, NPR, and Chicago Public Media. You can hear her every weekday. Man, I drop every other week. Oh my goodness. Hey, bartender, get her another one. Get her already lined up for another one. She's on my tab. Every weekday on the City Cast Madison podcast, and I've had the pleasure of listening to her podcast. She has a strong, insightful, and passionate voice. I'm proud to call her a new friend and a colleague, and she's my special guest tonight so we can talk about our voices and what it means to do what we do in this space. So once again, Miss Bianca Marten. Yes, it is. Okay. And I forgot to give you this one. I'm sorry. My team's going to quit after this.
Oh. They're absolutely in love with everything that's happening with your podcast, as am I. I just have to first say thank you so much for inviting me. I am beyond honored, and I've known about you since, the Justified Anger article came out, and it means a lot to me to be here and listening to your podcast, and later to meet your sister Lilada. You guys are heroes to me. So.
That's
I don't mean to yeah.
No. We paid her to say that.
No, they didn't.
No, they did. Listen, I'm so glad that you're here. So we want to talk a little bit about the importance of our voices in spaces like this. So my first one is, in light of what's happening now in media, what's it like being a black person, a black communications professional in the current media environment?
Man, it is complicated. Like, you really set up your experience so well, and it made me think about all of the different, microaggressions and all the extra work that we have to go through just every single day to show up. I think I stand on the shoulders of giants, and yet it's still so heavy. I think people expect so much of Black people, and especially Black professionals. I think they think we are the answer, and we certainly are part of the answer, but we can't do it all. And being in media and being able to share my voice is such a gift, and I really joined this space because I've always been interested in how power works and how it's shared. Just growing up the way that I did, and kind of definitely lower socioeconomic status, I just was like, these systems aren't right. They're not fair. And how do I get the word out? How do we do this? I looked to mass media. So that's kind of why I went to that. I was like, maybe I'll try and be the president of PBS, save the kids. And I'm like, well, the adults need to be saved.
There's still time.
There's still time. There's still time. Thank you. But yeah, it's really complicated. It's never, I don't want to say never, but it's a really powerful time to try and shift narratives about who we are as Black Americans. I think I've just been watching the Olympics, and so many Black stars that are, just making us so proud. And, obviously we'll probably talk about this more, but Kamala Harris is now the first Black woman, running not the first one to run, because we know that, but the first one, who got the Democratic backing. So yeah, that's pretty huge. But yeah, it's a complicated space. I am tired like everyone else, even though I'm a young person. It's like, I don't want to complain, but I think I personally, my experiences in life have made me very sensitive. I carry a lot of trauma in my body, and it's something that is a full-time job to try and heal, and it's ancestral, it's generational. Both of my parents passed away. My mother passed away last year. I think I've shared that with you recently. And we're out here. We're trying to change our landscape so that we can all have a beautiful life. And it's a lot of work, but it's also a privilege.
Sure.
How's that?
No, I like it. Now, you grew up here in Wisconsin.
I did, yeah.
In Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Oh, Lord.
Yes. So you grew up in the Boo.
I grew up in the Boo.
Okay, yeah. And we won't stay on that a long time, because we'll talk about that when you come back on the show another time. But growing up in that environment, did you ever envision that you'd have a voice, that you had a voice, and that you'd be able to use it to strengthen and encourage and reach other Black people with your voice? I would imagine being somewhat, I don't want to say diminished. I'm not saying people tried to make it smaller, but certainly outnumbered. Did you envision as a person growing up in Baraboo that this would be your plight, and you'd be talking about the importance of Black issues in space?
Absolutely not. I didn't even really have college in mind until I joined the tennis team in high school and saw that all of my peers were planning to go to college and taking tests and that sort of thing. I was running around the streets of Baraboo. I actually was a pretty good kid, but I was, and kids are supposed to be out, having fun, but I just didn't have a lot of support at home, not a lot of supervision, and just kind of ill parents who weren't very present. And I don't think there were a ton of people looking out for me to be a star. In fact, I was just thinking recently, and I intend to be a star. Obviously, I just shared that, which sounds like very Kanye, but but I remember like early on, there was a German program for the gifted kids, and all of my friends who I graduated at the top of my class with, they all went through that. And I remember, why wasn't I selected? Stuff like that. And until I got to high school where I met the art teacher, the art room is for the creative freaks that maybe don't fit in. She was from California. She really made an effort to make me feel normal. For even wanting to be ambitious. Apparently people behind my back said, that she's really ambitious. And it's like, that's coded. Like, what do you mean? And so just, there are so many things.
She doesn't want to work for the circus.
She doesn't. Well, yeah, now I do.
Wisconsin,
kind of.
I love
some
big circus.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's a Wisconsin joke.
No, that's good. But I mean, I faced, and I think being from Baraboo is part of why I ended up kind of taking this path, because I remember people dressing up in blackface for the basketball games. There was a row in the parking lot unofficially called Hick Row, and it was all pickup trucks, and multiple had Confederate flags on it. And I remember reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and all of these guys stood in front of my desk and said how they would have like hung them too, or just really dark-sided stuff that I internalized and didn't, just like, this is just the landscape. And I didn't have people really around me telling me that just quite how messed up that was. And I remember, yeah.
So you weren't shocked when you saw the photo of Baraboo Sr. standing there paying homage to Hitler?
No, not at all.
Or standing like you weren't shocked at all when you saw that? Not
at all. And unfortunately, somehow, a lot of Baraboo was. And I actually spoke out at that time. A lot of reporters reached out to me, and I didn't quite take that path. I didn't want to, I don't know why I didn't make a statement, but I made a statement on my Facebook that kind of went little mini viral. But if you guys are surprised by this, like, maybe you're not paying attention. Maybe you need to open your ears, because this is so not surprising. Like, why are you clutching your pearls?
Right. We saw this.
Get out.
We saw this. So, podcasts are these unique spaces. And really, I didn't know what a podcast truly was until I started recording mine. I was a person who grew up on radio. I liked radio. I'm going to show my age. I love Paul Harvey and, local stuff and storytelling. But I'm curious, could Black voices be as prominent in society today without podcasts? And what role have podcasts had in proliferating our voices?
That's interesting. I think it's big. I was just listening to Jamel Hill. I think podcasting allows for kind of opening the market. You don't have to go through all of the hoops to get to the network level, right, and all of the BS basically that is
FCC regulations
to get your voice heard. And I think I've seen just a proliferation of Black voices in the podcasting space, and it feels so beautiful because you don't have to also cater to the larger audience, and by larger audience, often like Madison, 80% white. You can just focus on the people. You can be yourself. There's a great NPR Code Switch conversation around the explainer comma, where there was a white woman who called in totally infuriated that someone didn't explain who Tupac Shakur. And that is the sort of expectation. I know it's horrible. That's right. That's the sort of expectation that whiteness is in the center. Thinking about, I don't know if you've seen that Toni Morrison fantastic interview where some woman's like, yes, "Are you ever going to meaningfully talk about white lives in your books?" And she said, "I don't think you understand how profoundly racist that statement is." So I think podcasting is a beautiful space for allowing new voices to get in wherever their destination. Some audiences maybe just they aren't for you, and it's okay.
And the beauty of podcasts is that it's not limited to a geographical area. When I was growing up, for those of you that have always had the internet, like your local radios, you couldn't hear them anyplace else. So like in Madison, we couldn't listen to Milwaukee radio or Chicago radio. The internet allows you to go and find these stations and these places. So what's really beautiful is that if we were only left to radio, you'd need the resources to do it, and the access,
the infrastructure
the infrastructure, and all of those things. And we have people creating powerful conversations in wonderful spaces, and they're able to do that from a simple, space like this.
And just using their smartphone.
And using a smartphone.
Yeah.
How did you get into the podcasting space? Because we talked about your experience with National Geographic and NPR and other things. What made the podcast world attractive to you?
I started in radio because I really love radio. Like some of my core memories are listening to like Motown on the radio in the car, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing when I got to UW Madison, and all I wanted to do was do like a liberal arts degree, and it came time to start paying bills. I'd paid bills before that time, but I went to a professor on campus, Karma Chavez, who I wanted to take her graduate course, and she said, come into my office hours. And I basically talked at her for 45 minutes about my life and all the things all these frustrations as a student. And she said, do you need a job? And she brought me over to a WORT, and because she's like, you might be great for public affairs. So I was a producer. That was my first radio job, was at WORT. And so love for them forever.
Oh, of course. My podcast started at WORT, yes.
Right. Yay, yes, we love it. And it turned out I ended up having almost a communications degree without paying attention. And I ended up, my first job, actually, I went into government because I told you I was interested in like how power worked, that sort of thing.
Right.
And I just felt very stifled in that space. I worked for the senator, and there were great things about it, but you have to be buttoned up, and you're representing everyone else. And so I feel like maybe there was a voice in me that was waiting to have her say. And I'm still working on that. But I jumped from working in the U.S. Senate to getting this job at 1A, which is an NPR program, a daily news talk show. And I loved it. I loved the storytelling. I loved the opportunity to bring new voices in. And I was really successful, and I was promoted. And, so when you have success, I'm like, oh, maybe we're going to figure this out. And then people started saying, well, when are you going to get behind the mic? And there's this national network called City Cast, and they came to Madison. And I was approached by the original executive producer, Molly Stentz, to get a job. She thought I would be a really, great voice in Madison. And I'm like, well, let's give podcasts a try. But yeah, I spent most of my career in radio, but radio now also makes their shows into podcasts.
Sure.
So I did skip a step, which is the National Geographic podcast, which is really cool. I don't know if you want to hear about that.
I do.
Okay.
Just because I grew up watching National Geographic and
right, and this was one of these phenomenal
reading
things. If I may, this is my ADD brain. When you were sharing earlier about some of the hurdles that we have to go through, I had a woman say to me about this National Geographic job, how did you get that job? I get that a lot. I get that a lot, just like Kamala is, I keep trying to bring it to her.
So National Geographic can take their cameras to Africa, but they can't let people from Africa be behind the mic.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and you know what I said to her? Because we were talking about say it loud, say it proud.
Come on.
I said, well, first of all, they headhunted me. They came to me, and I was like, well, it's because my record speaks for itself. I have award-winning programs, and people have talked about me, and they came to find me and hire me. I said it even more cool than that. But I remember being like, oh, she was like, oh, okay, boom, boom, boom. And I was like,
right. I didn't mean anything, but I just meant, how did you come all the way out here?
Yeah, and I got that pretty much my entire career is like, how did you get this job? Assuming it was a DEI offer and it's like, actually, I was undeniable. And what the job at 1A, when I applied for that, there were 200 applicants. And the executive producer there said, there were lots of applicants that were much more experienced than you who had master's degrees, but you're special and I want you on this team. And it's because I nailed that interview and I studied and I made incredible pitches, including one about Black Panther. That was back in 2016.
Yes.
But I heard that over and over again. How did you get this job? But anywho, National Geographic, that podcast, which I really recommend, is called Into the Depths. It is about flipping narratives on their head about the transatlantic slave trade. And it's about Black archaeologists who are now currently doing the work of excavating.
Black archaeologists.
Black archaeologists. I follow a bunch of them on Twitter now, or on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. Instagram. X. Anyway, I follow a bunch of them on Instagram. Wow. But it's like this beautiful work of basically excavating the ships to try and find stories that have not been told, and particularly stories of resistance and dignity and power. There's lots of, there were slave rebellions. Also, something I didn't know before doing that podcast was that there's a very strong lineage of diving cultures in some of the nations where, enslaved people were taken from, and they were taken intentionally because they were so skilled. And they were used to find treasure. I know that sounds treasure,
sure.
But like literally, there's a narrative around enslaved folks that we were weak and feeble, and it was nothing of the sort. And how the ships were even built, and it was built to keep extremely strong people from getting free. And so there's just so many beautiful aspects to that podcast about Black joy, Black freedom, Black storytelling, and flipping everything on its head from all the stories we've ever been told about the transatlantic slave trade. Like, there's a lot of dignity and a lot of pride that we can take from something that is as horrendous and a part of our history that just hasn't been really covered very well, frankly. So that was that podcast. It's a 6-part series, and I can't recommend it
I would
enough.
love to have a Black archaeologist on my podcast. So if you know any,
I can
or
hook
put
it
me
up.
in touch. Yes, I would. Wouldn't that be cool to listen to? That would be. So Bianca, our world's a little different in that Black Like Me is created to give voice to my experiences, but City Cast isn't that. But yet you bring your voice and perspective to it. So tell me how you feel City Cast is different, better, because you and your perspective are there.
I think I bring a sensitivity. You mean as my identity, like as a Black woman?
Right.
Yeah, I think I bring a sensitivity and just as a person, expertise that's really helpful. I've kind of crafted my career around trying to share stories that aren't being shared or are being shared really poorly and unskillfully. I heard something that I got this great opportunity early on to be an AIR, Association of Independent Radio Journalists, New Voice Scholar, and it kind of changed. That was another really big step for me, where I got to go to Third Coast Audio Festival in Chicago, and I got to meet the people of Youth Radio out in Oakland, and they have a saying that I share to anyone who will listen, which is nothing about us without us.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just so painful. There's so many stories that that they're not speaking to the audience they're talking about, and it's just at this point it's lazy.
Yeah, yes.
You hear a lot that there's not enough talent too, and I've heard that in Madison too. Oh, we can't. I would love to hire Black people, but no one's applied. The pipeline issue, that's also a fallacy. So I like to think that I bring to CityCast that experience of No, there are absolutely different experts on this. We don't have to go to the exact same voices all the time. And it's actually funny. Our new producer, Phil Circus, he moved here from Oakland, and he said, listening to your podcast, I thought Madison was much more diverse. And I'm like, I'm sorry we fooled you. Sorry about it. But yeah, and I think, talking about, I think this is me just as a person.
Sure.
I would describe me as an empath, and I care about people's hearts. And I cry at commercials. Like, I just feel people, and I step into their experiences. And I think I bring a safer space, especially for people of color, so they don't have to explain themselves, because I've had a lot of the same experiences they do. Just like when I'm listening to Black Like Me, I'm like, ooh, I can breathe out, and like you're already coming with a level of experience that it doesn't need to be explained.
What's missing in the media, mass media environment? What conversations need to be going on that really aren't right now? In your opinion?
Well, I feel like the issues cycle through. I feel like your podcast does a really great job on this, but like I think our carceral system is just horrendous and unconscionable. And I think a lot of people, the news has been so heavy, the national news and international news, that it's getting forgotten. But there are humans today who are being treated like they aren't humans. And how do we tackle those issues with empathy and looking for solutions? It's something we try to do those conversations, and sometimes audiences want to look away, same way people look away from someone who's homeless, or maybe they feel powerless. And if there could be more effort and, I don't know, time put aside to get away from the daily deadlines, to get out of your butt, and do the work of talking about mass incarceration and more, that would be really phenomenal. I think newsrooms are very, very white still to this day. Madison is certainly an example of that. A lot of our major outlets have mostly white newsrooms. And the things that you miss there are that lived experience, and you'll see mistakes that are really egregious, that can turn audience members away. Like if I'm reading something that somebody wrote and it has a total, microaggression, or, someone puts Chinaman or like something just outdated and wrong, I'm to think this isn't for me. And we all need to be together and reading. I don't know. This is just me. This is the media landscape. It's so fractured. It would be nice if we could get on the same page for fixing and addressing some of the issues we face.
Mm-hmm. When we first started out off in this conversation, you talked about wanting to understand how power works. Having been now at Cityscape for how long? City Cast. I'm sorry, keep them.
Yeah,
City Cast for how long?
A little over 2 years. I don't know how long.
A little over 2 years. Do you feel that you're harnessing that power? Is it scary saying that you have access to it and you're wielding it? What's your relationship with the understanding of power right now, having been in your role for 2 years?
That's such a beautiful question. That's why I'm proud and excited to be here.
Oh, thank you.
Oh man, I know there's so much more that I can do, and I'm very aware of it.
Sure.
And I think we've done great work too. We do something, we ask all of our guests demographic information so we can see at the end of the year, well, how well did we do for our are we actually doing what we say? And we had a pretty good outcome that we were hitting, our demographic groups and numbers commensurate with their population numbers, what have you. And I think I just had the hardest year of my life. Frankly, I lost my mom and other things. Family member was incarcerated. Being back in Madison after I moved to DC and I lived in Chicago, and I actually stayed in Madison because of this job opportunity, but it wasn't my intention. And I actually left because I wanted to maybe be in a more diverse city, which your words actually have rung out to me forever since I heard them, which was, we really want to keep Black talent in Madison. How do we do that? And then I graduated. I'm like, after a year, I'm like, okay, I'm going. But I came back. And I'm grappling with a lot of the same struggles that I hear from other people of color here, that it can be tiring, that it's exhausting to explain yourself, your humanity, and people questioning your experiences too if you do face racism. But I've also encountered allies, and I know there's such goodwill in Madison. Like, there's genuine goodwill across the board and from, white allies. So when it comes to power, I think I have been shedding layers. I don't know if have you heard of it's the metaphor about a lobster. Like, the lobster grows and grows and grows in its shell. And then it's basically gonna burst out of its shell, and it's gonna be totally vulnerable. And it goes, until it grows its new exoskeleton. I feel a little bit like that. Like, I burst out of a shell, and I was very vulnerable when I took the mic for City Cast Madison. Now somehow we've done 370 episodes, and it gets easier. Thank you. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I wasn't hiding under my covers a lot, trying to just make it another day, and integrate myself into Madison and protect myself, because I am used to kind of putting others first and giving myself totally away. And I've found little ways and bigger ways interpersonally to stand up for myself. And those have consequences too that take a lot of energy. But I think I'm proud of where I'm at today, and the fact that I've made it where we got Madison's best podcast, and we were Madison focused, local. And I don't know, it's a journey, but I am excited to possibly even evolve Pokemon style to my next Pokemon, so I can execute on more power.
You folks, help me thank Bianca Marten for being here and being our guest. Bianca's going to come back up in just a few minutes. We've got a couple of other things to do, but I'm looking forward to the discussion that's going to happen in the second part. So thank you again. We're just going to transition and bring some stuff up. So listen, let me do this. Let me transition for just a moment. The newest member of our team is here. She's a graduate student, and she's from Colorado. And she flew back from Colorado just to be at this event tonight, because she's coordinating the communications and the outreach of Black Like Me podcast and creating space for our listeners to be able to talk with each other. So I want her to come and talk about some of the new things that she has designed and that she's worked out. And she might still be a little jet lagged from flying in, but just help me give a warm welcome to Ariana as she comes up to talk.
Thank you so much, one, for your introduction and for having me here today and for allowing me to be here with you all. So yeah, as Dr. G has mentioned, I've been really helping the Black Like Me podcast team with helping to create a digital listener space that we are really, really excited to be inviting you all to. But I was also asked with on the theme of kind of having conversations and stories and connections to the podcast to share just a little bit more about myself, and especially because with this community space, we're really asking listeners to also be in community and be vulnerable and just really connect with each other. So I think it's important for me to demonstrate that for myself. And I have some notes here, so don't mind if I'm looking through the papers. I just want to make sure I hit on the points that I wanted to touch on. But yeah, I just wanted to really quickly share more about myself and how I feel my story is connected to the work that I'm doing with the podcast, and why it's something that feels so important to me, and why I'm super excited to be doing this work. And so I feel when I think about the work that I do today, and especially with the Black Like Me podcast and with Dr. G, I think a lot about very specific moments in my life, and I use this story all the time in letters of statements and stuff like that, because I feel it's been so pivotal on me. But I kind of think a lot back to middle school, which for me feels like another lifetime, which is really weird. But around that time, like around middle school age, 12, 13-ish, I used to spend a lot of my free time in the library. I would like literally get home from school on the bus and like not go home. I would just go straight to the library and like just be there until they closed. And there was a lot of reasons for that at that time in my life. Back at home, we did not have internet, and so that was just kind of how I had like decided I wanted to essentially spend my free time. But there was also just a lot going on at that time in my life. My mom was just kind of working a lot. I lived like with my grandma, and my parents, like they weren't together at the time. So there was just like a lot going on externally, and I found the library as just kind of a place for me to be able to escape and get away and kind of not have to like deal with my like real reality at that time. I was also just a really shy and anxious kid. And so instead of like going out and making real friends in the real world, I decided to like connect with characters on the screens of like the media I was consuming or in the books that I was reading. But I very quickly began to realize, even if it's subconsciously, that a lot of the characters that were on the screens or in these books and stuff didn't really look, act, or live like me. Just essentially didn't have the representation that I probably needed at that time in my life. And so I feel like as a young, Black, pretty lower class, and at times even pretty impoverished girl, growing up in an underfunded neighborhood within Denver, Colorado, this like lack of representation really started having impacts on my self-esteem. And it's really cool like kind of hearing a lot of the conversations you and Bianca were having as well, like regarding like representation and how important it is, because I feel like I was living the repercussions of that at that young age. I grew up not really seeing myself as like worthy enough, not like good enough, just not really seeing myself in all of this media that was perpetuated as so important. But luckily at the same time, I also had parents that really pushed me to want to be better and wanted to see me succeed, and they really encouraged me to get a better education so that I could pursue a life that was better than what I had at that time and be more than they even ever got to be. And so because of that, I felt like I dreamed a lot as a kid. I would daydream, like coming home on the bus from school all the time. I would like daydream and plan all the time at the library what it is I wanted to do when I was older. And I feel like I really daydreamed a lot about like creating and telling stories that did represent people that look like me, and dreaming about a world that actually could be better for myself and my family and my community. And so that really like inspired me to attend CU Boulder, and I had a chance to study journalism and media production. For one, I thought it would be cool to have like job security instead of going into just like creative writing or something, going into a field that like had job potentials, but also being able to tell stories about like real people that were really impacting them and maybe have a real impact on people. And so it was really cool to kind of go and pull my passions together in those degrees and make really cool like short documentaries in my classes about issues that mattered to me, like mass incarceration, or I had a chance to work on a podcast-related research project about affordable housing and geographical racism. And I bring up those specific examples too because I feel like it's really cool how they have really cool connections to the work that Dr. G and the Black Like Me podcast does. But being able to do that work really inspired me to want to dig deeper beyond just kind of reproducing media that already wasn't representing me or was intentionally or unintentionally representing me incorrectly, but also like exploring like how it really intersects kind of with power and structural inequities and all of that stuff. So that's all kind of led me to where I am now at UW-Madison. I'm in the Communication Arts Department, and I'm hoping to continue studying media representation and activism and just kind of exploring how the media can be a better space for Black representation and Black voices. And so when I came across the amazing opportunity to work with Dr. G and the Black Like Me podcast team, despite being new to Madison, I didn't want to pass it up. I got the call for applications last fall, which was my first semester here. So I was like really nervous because I didn't really know anybody here. I had just moved here that semester. But I knew it would be the perfect fit for me, and especially I knew that it was the type of representation that I had needed at a younger age that I think could have had a better impact on my self-esteem, and the type of representation that was kind of empowering me to do the work that I do today. So I've had a chance to work with this amazing team for the past few months now, and it really does feel like things have come full circle for me from when I was a little girl in the library, consuming media to escape, but still not having the representation that could have allowed for, I guess, more of a positive escape at that time in my life, to like being able to work with creators and activists and leaders that are really highlighting these stories and telling these stories and pushing the needle. And so with that kind of like introduction and very like brief and I guess broad story about myself, I'm really excited that I'm able to be here today now with you all to introduce the new digital listener space that we've had a chance to work on. So as you all know now, the podcast is moving into its 10th season, and Dr. G has drawn in listeners on a national and even international scale with like the people he's brought in and the topics he's explored. And so with that, the team sees the podcast as a really cool space to even continue moving these discussions forward and even generating lives or generating action in the lives and communities of listeners such as you guys. And so in order to do this, we created a listener space for listeners to engage with and interact more, both with each other, no matter where it is you are, which is why it's really cool that it's digital. And I'll introduce what that means in just a second. But no matter where you're listening from, there's a space that listeners can now go ahead and interact with each other, with the team. If there's like conversations that are had on the podcast that are really inspiring, conversations in people's own lives that are really inspiring, we really wanted to create a space where that can be pushed a lot more and generated a lot more. And so this mainly includes a private Facebook group. It's a private, but like it's searchable, but private as in you have to be like kind of accepted in once you join and fill out like the questions and all of that. But it's named after the podcast, so it's named Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. There's going to include some weekly posts for you guys to comment on and engage with. So posts like from the team, that we decide if there's like a question from the podcast that we want to ask, a question in general that we want to ask the listeners and engage with you all on. You're also free to generate your own conversations and discussions as long as if they're like approved and all of that and they're appropriate. If you feel empowered by something in the podcast or something in your own communities and lives, it's a space for you guys to feel empowered to do that as well. And there's going to be a mix of light topics like black icebreakers and polls or more serious questions and stuff like that as well. So today's actually pretty much marking the kickoff date for this listener space as well, and you guys are kind of getting like an exclusive in-person invitation before the launch of season 10. And as you guys are doing that, I'll just wrap up to say that your engagement as you all are here today is going to continue to be super vital in allowing this online community to flourish as well. So just asking for you all to continue to engage and be in community with each other, with the team as well. And once you all are joined and approved, you will have to be approved. But once you are approved, you can go ahead and start answering some questions. There's a question pinned in there as well, actually, related to today's event. So once you're in there, you can go ahead and start engaging with each other with the posts that are going to be there. And once again, the name of that space is Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening and engaging with me. And please feel free to come up and chat with me if you guys have like questions, concerns, or anything like that afterwards. And I look forward to connecting with you all.
Thank you. Come on, help me give it up for Ariana again. This is my first time seeing the card. I'm loving this. I'm loving this. And we're asking people, if you know folks who would be interested in these kinds of conversations or listening in, please share it with them. Please share it with them. I want to invite, Bianca, I want to invite you back up to the table, fellow podcaster, and my sister Lilada G, who is a podcast host of Defending Black Girlhood. Let's give them a hand as they come back up. I want to throw a slight curveball because we've been talking about the importance of black voices in spaces. But what I'd love to bring up is, what's the uniqueness for the opportunities or the need specifically for the voice of black women in media? Because that's different, perhaps, it is definitely different than my perspectives. And so do you agree that that space is different?
Yeah, I think so. Lilada, do you want? We're sharing a mic here.
So get 2 mics. Yeah, it's totally different, and I think everybody wants black women to save everybody, but nobody wants to listen to us.
So true.
You know, so.
Oh, wow. Well, you're just going to leave it right there? So you're just going to do that mic drop right there at the table?
It's so true. And I think, asking about Black female voices versus, or Black male voices, I think that there's an extra weight being a woman, a Black woman, because there's more expected of us. We are everyone's mom. You have to be empathetic and warm and competent. And then there's a society that, ascribes you as less competent without even knowing you. I think that's something I've been thinking about. Something I just heard today was, I think a lot about my speech patterns, and I say like. Sometimes I kind of, I use I say like, and apparently for women behind the mic, that's more common in our speech generally because we have a tendency to get cut off. People interrupt us more. We're less respected. Another thing I've been thinking about is, people will be like, these different groups are marginalized, Latinos, Black people, and women. Does that bother you when you see that? I'm like, I'm a Black woman. It's like, I don't know. There's something that just jumps out to me about that just feels like we're erased even in that particular scenario.
Right. I mean, I think, again, we're expected to save everyone, to be the leader of every movement, but we're not included. Like, I'll give you, for instance, years ago, 2020, there was this march that was happening on campus and down State Street. And they were chanting, what's his name? George Floyd. What's his name? George Floyd. And then they said, what's her name? And it got totally quiet because no one could come up with Breonna Taylor. It got totally quiet. And there's always conversation that Black women aren't doing enough, yet we are always doing everything. Like, we have nursed everyone at our breasts. Everyone at our breasts. And there's always wanting more from us, but not wanting more of us. Like, I had this conversation with a white woman recently, and she kept telling me how Black people need to vote. You need to vote, you need to go to vote. And
she's like,
I'm so sick of white people telling me to vote. Tell me to run for office, though that's not for me, but tell me to run for office. Give me something to vote for, And I just said, no, we really need Black women running for office. And we know that Black women got Joe Biden in office. We know it was on the backs of Black women. Yet and still, what did he do for Black people? What did he do for Black women in particular? And it's not that he didn't do something for people ethnically, because he did. But what did he do for Black women who got him into office? So we're always expected to show up. I had an opportunity to interview one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, and I asked her, why is it that we show up for Black men, but we don't have Black men show up in the same ways for us? And as we look at all of the instances of unarmed Black people who have been murdered, and if we look at Black women, 90, if not more percent of Black women who have been killed, who were unarmed, were actually killed in their homes, and the majority had called the police for intervention. Now, to me, that is a more critical issue than someone being killed on the street. Both are dead, so they're both critical. But Black women are not safe in their homes. But we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to have those conversations. And even, you might get into this later, but even with Sonia Massey, where are the marches? If that had been a Black man, Black women would have been in the streets. So, yeah.
That Malcolm X quote just always rings through my mind about how black women are the least protected in our society. They're the least respected. And it just rings so true. And missing black girls, missing black women, we do really need people to care more about our voices and our experiences. And it feels like we're just really pushed to the margin and expected to smile about it. Smile, come in, save the world. It's like, who's saving us, who's looking out and putting us first? Because we've been so decentered, we should be centered.
Right.
We want to, while we're having this very meaningful, very powerful discussion, I'm thinking about some of the ways in which Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, and presidential candidate Kamala Harris is being ridiculed. Some of that's going to come because of race. Others going to become, thank you for that.
Well, look at God.
A savior. Look at someone care about black women.
Thank you all back there. Thank you for that. But let's talk a little bit about what comments are just straight up sexist and misogynistic. Because they're going to come at the race thing, they're going to come at the border issue, they're going to come at the political things. But as you're listening, and what things are you hearing? And they're saying, they're trying to characterize her as this out of control black woman. What things are you hearing?
Well, I'll give one, for instance. There's this picture of Kamala Harris in this green gown in front of the Liberty statue. And it's very sexualized. She has this high split, They wouldn't have done Hillary like that. I've never seen any female candidate, Elizabeth Warren, they didn't do her like that. So just the sexualization of black women is a whole conversation. But the whole thing about her not having children, maybe she can't have kids. But why are you ridiculing a woman because she hasn't physically had children? I think those are some of the initial things that I've heard.
On that last point, I am just floored by that comment. Yeah, J.D. Vance saying that the country's being run by childless cat women, and the insinuation if you don't have a child of your own that you are not giving to the United States is just so wrong.
Or if you have a whole bunch of them and you're not raising them like his boss.
Right, like exactly. I have 5 kids from 3 different women, Donald Trump, but
What are their names again? You.
Yeah, I also saw some post about it, but George Washington didn't have kids, our first president. And just for what it's worth, no president ever has been a mother, so they can go ahead and be quiet. The thing that really upsets, there's a lot of upsetting things, but hearing about her intelligence feels both racist and sexist. I saw a news piece about Republican women or Trump voters, a women's Trump voting group in Milwaukee, and multiple of them said that they thought that she wasn't very bright. That just really strikes me as they don't know, but also they're willing to open their mouth and talk negatively about another woman. But she's so clearly competent, and the way that she handles, she was the prosecutor for the state of California. Yeah,
she has a JD, a Juris Doctorate.
Yeah, and that ties into, the comments that she's a DEI hire. Wow. The fact that that's a negative thing, first of all, is just shows all the confusion around DEI, and it's just sad.
So let me. No, and I love that honesty in here. Talk to me about any new energy that you're feeling because of the announcement of her role, and what you're experiencing. Lilada, you were on an outing recently with a group of black women out on a lake cruise when this news came out. What was it like to hear that kind of news about this black woman with black women? What was that energy like and that feeling?
Oh, and I got one of my sisters here who was on a ship with us. It was exhilarating. It was exhilarating to be in the space with black women and to hear that news. And we all just went in an uproar and just were so excited about it. That was extremely special to be in that space and to hear that.
As Black women, you don't want to be responsible for interpreting or translating, this is what she meant, or this is why she laughed that way, or those kinds of things. But what opportunities that are you looking forward to with the platforms that you have? Lilada is also a podcaster. You can listen to Defending Black Girlhood. That's on any of the podcast networks that are out there. What's exciting about this opportunity? What does it do to your own voice? Does this space make you want to use your voice differently, or say, see, I told you, or that we've nursed everyone and now we're going to nurse the nation and the world back to health? Does it motivate you to use your voices differently? Does it give you a greater sense of pride?
No, I'm kind of in the season of life where I'm going to say what the hell I need to say. So I won't say that. You know what I'm saying? I was going to say another cuss word, but I'm just going to say hell. Yeah, so I'm just kind of in that season of life, that age and stage where I feel emboldened to really use my voice. And to determine where I'm going to put my energy. I think it makes me excited that, just like I was saying before, we're not just asking Black women to vote, but we're now asking a Black woman to lead.
I think it's a really great question. I think I've had mixed feelings on Kamala Harris, and it's made me kind of look inward on where those are coming from. I think maybe it's how she presents herself. Sometimes she seems tough. She seems tough, and why not? When you think of it, and that's one of the things I get to do some soul searching now. She presents herself as very competent and that she doesn't have time to waste sometimes. And I think I've been socialized to think that women should be warm at all times. And it's just, first of all, being a woman, it's just an impossible task. You can't, but she does this great job of being warm and also, saying what she means when she means it. And I didn't even think about this until right now, but I actually have a shirt that says, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. Yeah.
Yes.
So I've been wearing that Kamala shirt for a while because we just get interrupted all the time. Our words, seem to matter less. And I think this might change that. And it might embolden me too. My journey is being less nice, because it's kind of a waste of time. But I think kindness is important. But I put a lot of weight on being, or not consciously, but subconsciously being acceptable. And maybe I'll move in this space a little bit differently if we can get together and accept her as a leader and in her many facets.
Mm-hmm. When President Obama ran, it gave me a chance as a Black man to see someone who looks like me running, but still picked apart nationally, thinking that his qualifications or education or intelligence don't really matter. I would imagine, as you two are saying you're watching and seeing, that you're not necessarily saying, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, that you want to see if she's serious. Now you have someone running for the most powerful position in the world. She's qualified, she's brilliant, she's strong, she's proven, but yet people are going to pick her apart from laughter to everything. So now what has happened within the microaggressions of the studios, the art galleries, the performing art spaces, the classrooms, the pulpits, the churches, the courtrooms, now it's going to be out in the open for the whole world to see. Here's a Black woman who's brilliant and qualified, and the whole world is going to watch us talk about her life. And but yet her hair is not orange. Or there's other things that are going on, and this is not meant to be a political thing. What I'm just saying is, if you want to start pointing at folks and laughing at stuff, there's a whole lot of stuff to do. But to begin to associate a belly laugh because someone has the audacity to have some joy, my grandmama used to sing a song, I still got joy, I still got joy. After everything I've been through, I still got joy. After everything she's been through, a black woman who's been in the White House and trailblazer, she still got joy and laugh. That should say, watch out for her.
I'm scared of you.
I'm scared of you, that's right. I'm scared of you because you might be able to push them buttons and say, ha, 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 I told y'all. So that's something I want people to think about as well, that you have to also hold your breath to watch what might have been more personal and guarded and regional in a sense, becoming something that people are beginning to pick at. Like, that's the best you got, a laugh? Like, that's the best thing you've got to pick at. But yeah, that's the other piece of it.
I think it's so lovely that she's demonstrating all of this joy publicly. I don't know, it makes me think of the Maya Angelou poem, I Rise. It's just like, why are you beset with gloom? Because I laugh like I got oil wells pumping in my back, in my living room. Like, I feel like she's been waiting for this moment is here. And I also am loving, like, her husband said, all you guys keep messing up her name. Well, don't worry, because soon you can call her Madam President.
Wow. Just to shift a little bit, because we can go on and on about so much of the heavy stuff, but what do you all do to take care of yourselves so that as black women who have voices in these microphones and you're telling grueling and important stories, just talk to me a couple of things that you've been doing this summer. Are you watching the Olympics? Are you swimming? Are you rowing? Are you running? What are you doing for self-care that's fun?
Well, yeah, I think my biggest self-care is traveling. And so I've been traveling this year, and we'll have some traveling coming up. I get massages on a regular basis. I think just taking that time to have the stress relieved is really important. And time with family and friends is really important and really helps to bring joy. Excuse me. And like creating space for black women unapologetically. Like, when I say I'm doing a black woman event, that's what I mean. And I don't apologize for it, because I know that it's space that we need. And I like to have that space. I need to have spaces in life where I'm not apologizing, where I'm not explaining, where I'm not being microaggressed against. I need that space, and so creating those spaces.
How about you?
I love it. Yes. My first endeavor this summer that was supposed to be fun, and it absolutely was, was I decided I was going to bartend at Gamma Ray Bar. I want to shout out Gamma Ray, Kevin Wilmot and Addie. They opened this bar over on downtown, and it is specifically Black centered. It's now Black owned. It replaced the Frequency. It's a music venue, and the name Gamma Ray is kind of space related. It's based off of Sun Ra's Space is the Place, and it's supposed to be a place where black folks can thrive. And I got behind the bar because I've done almost every other job in the service industry, but I've never been a bartender. And it was with a community of people of color. My friend Francesca Hong got behind the bar with me, and we were doing we love her. We were doing a happy hour, karaoke happy hour. So I love to sing, and I feel like singing is one of my self-care things I do in my own apartment, and for karaoke, because it's with the breath, right? We have to engage our. Give
us a little sample.
Singing.
Say something.
I don't want to do that one. Let me do. At last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over, and life is like a song.
I'm scared of you. Y'all better grab her out. She's over 18, but y'all might just make it allowance. Y'all make just allowance just for like some senior guest singer sometime. Oh my, who knew?
I mean, my plants, they know. I sing at home.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah.
Executive producer
Haley's.
Hurley, listen, you need to work her voice into like your theme song. Y'all need to, remember when Oprah turned 40, she sang, now Oprah couldn't sing, but when she turned 40, she sang her theme song.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did. She sang it. She might have written it too, but she sang it. They need to kind of hide some of your vocals and pull
We
it in
can
there.
add a little in. I feel like, didn't Whitney Houston like kind of call her out for that a little bit, and Oprah wasn't having it? Yeah, went viral because it's just like, you didn't need to call it, because Whitney, no one can sing like you, girl.
Right. She did call her out though, didn't she?
Yeah. But yeah, so singing, karaoke, and acupuncture. So I'm really with the massage over here. Red Sage, I feel like they're affordable, and they do acupuncture. Red Sage on Willie Street. We're on Willie Street right now at Cafe Coda, another wonderful music venue.
Sure.
But yeah, acupuncture has allowed me to get away from my phone. It's just, and cupping for stress. So yeah.
Wow. Listen, you communications professionals, you young ladies could be doing what you do anywhere. But the fact that you bring your voices with all of its special ranges and storytelling, and you show up and you continue to stay focused, and you talk about the needs of other people while still not being certain if folks will come to your rescue the way you come to others. Madison is very fortunate to have you, your voices, and your perspectives here. So I want to thank you all.
And back at you, obviously.
Thank
You're
you.
the leader. Thank you for inviting us.
It is my pleasure. Listen, I want you to be able to drink this. So I'm gonna let y'all step off the stage. But let's thank our special guest again. Thank you, Mr. Bartender. Listen, we're gonna wind up in just a moment. Do we have time for music still, or have we taken all the time?
No, you can finish up.
We can do that, okay, because we would love to hear some more of you all. I just want you to also just give a round of applause to Eli and Jeremy. These are guys who were with me when I started this. They're my editors, my producers. They make me look good and sound good and are excellent. They've been here since episode 1. I think we're at episode 186, 187. We're at 100. We're gonna do something special for 200. We're gonna do something special. We're gonna drop a special for 200. But we're so appreciative. Anything extra we need to mention to the folks, Eli, before we take off?
Just to sign up for the Facebook group again. Do that.
Yes.
Yeah, and season 10 is coming soon, and there's going to be extra stuff for Patreon members.
Yes. And so when you go to this page, if you want to become a financial supporter of it, you can find all that information on my website. It's done through Patreon, and it allows us to continue to be able to afford to do things like this and to hire staff and to produce a beautiful, beautiful podcast. So please just do a Google on any podcast platform, or use the card and scan it, or go to my name, alexgee.com, and follow us so that you get updates when when new episodes are dropping. We'd love your support. So listen, I am excited about season 10 and having this space to do this. When you go home, take a look at channel3000.com. They did a story on me this morning celebrating this milestone, and they asked, how important does it feel to be at season 10? I say, what's really important to me, I love being at season 10 because you can do 186 episodes and it can be garbage. But what I really have enjoyed is being able to have a space where I can say the things that I'm thinking and feeling in order to draw us closer and not to repel others. So for folks who listen, most of whom are not Black, feel that they're listening in to Black family members having a very real discussion that they might not necessarily have access to. So what I've appreciated is being able to have a voice to say, my doctor just left, or this is what's going on, or my mom has dementia, or these are the things that are happening, and here's where race is playing a role, not in having dementia, but in those who provide service. It has really been a gift to me to have this space where I don't have to have the pastor hat on or the cultural leader hat on. I can just be Alex G and talk about what my perspectives are in order to help people to understand our world, not just my world. We all live in the same world. By telling my story, you have a greater understanding and appreciation, or in some cases, a dissatisfaction with our world. But the point of this is to bring us all together to understand this better so that we can do a better job together. So thank you all for being here tonight. To the staff and the owner of Cafe Coda, thank you for always hosting us, for allowing us to have great spaces here. And I've always wanted to say this when I go to my comedy clubs: be sure to tip your waiters. Be sure to tip your waiters. All right, team, can you all come back up and just play us out? We're so proud of y'all. Let's give it up again for these young folks as they come up. Thank you so much for being a part of this Black Like Me live event.
Black Like Me. Black like me.
I want to thank you for taking time to listen to this episode of Black Like Me podcast with Dr. Alex G. If you like that opening track of our theme song, you can show your appreciation to Corey Saffold, who created that and produced it, and Marcus Fleming, my cousin, who's on vocals. I also want to say that this podcast was started with the generous support of the Human Family Unity Foundation, and so we always want to stop and thank them for that. For the many patrons who support us through our Patreon page, thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't just listen, but you support, you lean in, and you help this podcast to be what it is. And then I need to thank you, the listeners, who make a point of downloading this, listening to it, and sharing it. Without all of you, this podcast would not be what it is and what it's becoming. Thank you so much.